I have a business now that's run by 5 different AI agents.
Whoa, nice.
Yeah,
What is the business?
it's like a AI powered parts finding.
Mm.
It's like for people who are like for like part time and like electronics and shit.
Okay. Do you have like,
I'm restarting my that.
okay.
It's like an online 21st century thing
Hmm.
instead of a company that runs fax which is just like 2 decades.
But he ran a parts supply business.
He was an electronics and industrial parts broker.
Mm.
So he has like a huge database of like distributors and suppliers and shit.
Yeah.
And so I made that like searchable. And
Hmm.
every time you search, we do like AI deep research to find more people or companies selling that type of stuff that we don't have.
Mm.
And we do like several rounds of research with multiple AIs, and
Hmm.
then we email you updates. And when someone else does the search,
Yeah.
and their search brings in more companies, if those companies are also relevant to you, we
Hmm.
notify you about that too. So if you search once, and like a year later, you could get notified. Like, oh,
Mm.
we have a new distributor for that part that
Hmm.
you use in the thing after or whatever.
Nice.
Try to hit them up to get a better
Okay.
deal.
So there is some kind of relationship that gets built here. And then,
Not with me.
well,
I'm
with
trying to
the,
make it as hands off as possible. It's
uh,
you through my platform, you can search for a part or kind of thing that you're searching for that you
yeah.
need, and you can get the direct uh, company information. Reach out to them.
Mm.
What my dad would do is he was the middleman
Right.
and would mark it up 10%.
Mm.
But that means I have to be shipping stuff to hazardous materials,
Mm.
clearance through customs,
Mm.
returns.
So you're earning that 10%.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You'd be earning it.
He worked hard as fuck for 30 years.
Mhm.
Retired. And I'm like, yeah, let me get that database, see what I can do with it. It's a whole experiment. We'll see.
These were your father's databases.
Dude, it was written in a MS-DOS powered software that he built in like the late 80s or
Damn.
some shit.
Okay.
So it was a pain.
Hustler.
It was not like a well-structured database, but
Mhm.
everything's relatively easy now, thanks to
Or we just find new, mysterious ways for things to fail in ways that are incomprehensible to us
AI.
because we
As
vibe
always.
we vibe coded ourselves into a hole. Hey, y'all, welcome.
Hello.
Let's see. Anyone else coming in with the homework? No, just you know, all good. We're just here to have fun.
Yeah, I want to do more of the others one.
Yeah. Um. Oops, I guess I should turn the desktop back on. I think I solved my microphone woes just using Bluetooth open ear headphone microphone setup. Today we're gonna learn how to DJ. So hopefully no one knows how to DJ yet.
I have a question about like projects in Ableton.
Okay.
It's like everything that I've been saving gets
Yep.
saved in like a special Ableton folder that has like a little Ableton logo.
Hmm.
And I'm guessing that's like an Ableton project folder.
Hmm. Yeah,
Is there
there's
like a way how do you create other projects?
right. Yeah, you have these .als files. I think those kind of include all the metadata about your project, and then it has all the actual samples that you use are in here. Some of them might not show up here unless you do the collect all and save option to bring them into one place. And then, yeah, so this is why, like, if you open this, if you like uninstalled some VSTs and then open up your ALS file, then it won't know how to load those VSTs. Or if you move the samples, it might not be able to find them. So you have to tell it, like, here's where that sample is.
It's like how if you want to. It's like when you want to, if you're working on an album or something, you probably want it all to be in like the same folder. They might share samples and stuff.
I mean, I'd probably like, I don't know, make a new folder here, my cool EP, and then yeah, you could put all the projects here in one top level, or you could have like a separate folder for each project, or each song rather.
But so
I don't think it would matter.
In Ableton UI, there's no concept of like creating a new project folder. Do all that yourself.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, because I haven't.
Yeah, I think typically Ableton project would be just one track that you're working on, or I guess I've made DJ sets in there.
So if I were to save an ALS file, an Ableton file to just a different folder,
yeah,
I would turn that folder into like the project folder.
Like if you were to open the ALS file, you do file save as.
Yeah, in like a different place. Would it like make that other folder that's in have that special icon?
Maybe.
Just
I think it would add these oh yeah, I see what you mean by like special folder with the icon.
Yeah, I think it just creates a custom icon. Yeah, that's yeah. This there is okay. This is my along.
Go through and change all the icons.
Yeah.
That is cute. This is one of the.
Okay, I see. So the folder is the project, and then each file is the set.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Honestly, I don't get too
Yeah.
into the weeds with the file formats. But this is one of the few pieces of software I have where they actually change the icon for the folder. So, all right, cool. All right. Maybe it's just us today. I got a notification from YouTube the other day saying that it took down one of my videos for doxing because I at one point had a spreadsheet up on the stream of like who was in the class. But it was like one of my sessions from like a year or two ago. So
their scanning is so weird.
Yeah. I mean, there's too much data for them to be scanning like constantly everything in real time, I guess, I think. But yeah, it was like a little late there, Google, but okay. Sorry for doxing.
I had a video that when it was unlisted, it got a copyright strike.
When it was unlisted.
Well, like because it scans it, it's like, oh, it was like you're gonna get a strike for this song, and have the rights to the song. And I got the rights to one of the songs. There's 3, and I did get the rights to the other 2.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do it. And once it was published, all right, yeah, we don't care. You're good.
Oh.
It's great. Awesome.
Okay. Who can know the mind of a content ID scanning thing? Okay. I'd say let's just get started. Okay. So last week we talked about build-ups, talked about creating these like transitional sections that create a rising sense of anticipation and help move us from like a verse to a drop and set it up so that it's really impactful when the drop hits. And today we're going to talk about kind of 2 more pieces of song structure, intros and outros. So how do you start the song? How do you end the song? And we're going to do that in the context of DJing because that's how you generally perform electronic dance music these days. So we did get one homework submission from Noah, so thank you. But in the meantime, if y'all haven't installed Mix, this is the software we're going to be using. Go ahead and install that while we're listening here. And let's see. The homework was to add a build up to your song. So let's see how you did.
I didn't add, I made a build up and then made a drop
Mm.
after it. And I wanted this.
Nice.
There's a lot more I was going to do it unfinished.
That can actually be a good songwriting strategy because we talked about that technique of like playing a little fragment of the melody as part of the build up to create like anticipation. You can just pick any 2, 3, 4 notes, make up a fragment, and then when you get to the drop, be like, okay, how would I continue this as an actual melody? And then you can kind of like
really
do it backwards.
Melody,
that's okay. But that is, one technique you could use. Yeah, let's listen to what you got. Cool. Yeah, a lot of good bass energy in there.
I was going for distortion, lots of distortion on everything.
Okay. Yeah, I was getting kind of like a 90s Matrix club scene kind of vibe with like the heavy like distorted bass and that like sort of acidy sound you had in there for the drop. Good song structure too. You had some good like turnaround moments here where you just had the dun 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 dun, like that was really effective. Pulling some of those elements out. I like the vocal sample that you used. Well timed on the turnarounds. I would say that the bass is probably overpowering, like all things considered. Were you trying to do like one of those sub drop things with the where the bass like goes down like we talked about last time?
Maybe get to that. I didn't get to
it. Okay, all good. But yeah, so you might want to dial back on the bass.
Just volume, but
yeah, definitely volume. Because if you think about it, like bass doesn't have a lot of like, okay, so 1 octave from 20 hertz to 40 hertz, that's 1 octave, right? 2000 hertz to 4000 hertz, that's also an octave. And you have more finer gradations of frequency in that frequency range. So in the upper frequencies, you have more resolution to do more complicated kind of tones, whereas the bass has trouble doing anything too tonally complex or having too detailed of a timbre. It's like it tends to be pretty simple, but you feel it more. And so it doesn't often make a lot of sense to use a lot of your headroom budget on the bass because it doesn't like it can't do a whole lot or it can't like sound very complex. You can play notes or you play a bunch of notes on it. It can sound expressive. I won't deny that, but I like to have the minimum amount of bass necessary to get the point across because it's often like, kind of sitting there and it's a felt presence and it can do its job without having to take over the mix. And oftentimes when you are distorting or, adding saturation to sounds, it'll enhance, like the lowest frequencies tend to get the most lift from an effect like that. So you're kind of pouring more energy into the lower frequencies when you're using those kinds of effects. So, and when you're mixing on headphones, it makes it harder to hear the bass, so you have a tendency to turn it up. So I would mix based on a reference track, try to hear where it put the bass. I definitely, like, some of my older tracks definitely have the bass too high, and it kind of makes the track feel sluggish, or like it's not as brilliant sounding, or it's like slow. Another thing you can do is, if you put one of those visual EQ effects like EQ8 on it, you can see how much energy is going into the low frequencies, and you can take a reference track, look at the visual EQ on the reference track, and then see where its bass is peaking, or especially the relative heights of the like bass frequencies and the like mids and highs. So yeah, there's definitely a time and place for just like blowing people away with the bass. But I think you'll get a more nimble sort of mix if you have the bass reeled in a little bit.
Other than the volume, is there another way to tone down the bass in that, or is that
basically volume, side chaining, of course, to create space for the bass and the kick. If the problem is that the bass is not coming through very clearly, you can add a mid bass layer, like some low mid high frequency sound that plays the same note as the bass but isn't itself bassy, and that gives another. That's like why we use that one waveform that's got the 2 extra harmonics in it, because that adds a little bit more high frequency content that the ear can pick up on, and then you're not stuck just trying to turn up the bass trying to get it to come through. You have this extra mid layer that can give it some articulation, attack, etc. Yeah, but in general, this sounded really cool. Would love to hear a full length, properly mixed version of it.
After I made this, I heard some like vampire nightclub theme song from the original Blade movie.
Oh, nice! Yeah.
Kind of similar. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Mm.
Do a cover of this.
I kind of want to take this and throw it into Suno. I can't download it though, but it'd be interesting to see.
I could. There's no render. I could make it.
If you want to drop the MP3 in the Discord, that could work.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Anyone else got anything to submit before we move on? No worries if not. Okay. Did everyone get a chance to install Mix? Cool. Or maybe Sophie, did you get a chance to install Mix?
Yeah.
Sorry, am I getting someone's name wrong? Okay. Yeah, the links in the Discord, so install it at your leisure. But yeah, so like I said, we're going to talk about. Whoa. No, thank you, Java. We're going to talk about. Yes, don't need to install Java right now. We're going to talk about the basics of DJing today and use that to kind of contextualize a discussion about intros and outros in songs. So so far we've talked about drops, we've talked about build-ups, but how do you start off a song? Well, it can help to think about like who is your audience, right? So if you're dropping your track onto a streaming service, let's say, or you're using it in a TikTok video, or other short form kind of video, you probably want to get to the point really quickly. You probably want to grab your listener's attention really fast and not beat around the bush. Kind of just get right into it. So you can often start right away with an energetic buildup to create this, feeling that things are, immediately starting to pick up. You could start right in the drop. In that Hyrax song I showed y'all, I basically just started with the like high-rack screaming sound effect, and then went right into kind of like a pretty powerful beat. So, if that's your audience, then probably want to get right into things. But in a DJ set, typically the DJ is going to be mixing from one track to the next, and it can be challenging as a DJ if you don't have any sort of natural part of the song to mix one into the other. So oftentimes you'll have like either special DJ edits, or if you're searching on like Beatport or something, you could look for the extended mix version of tracks. And these tend to have, 16 to 32 bars of just drums, or maybe drums and bass at the beginning and end of the track. And, those are more, more stripped down instrumentations. Maybe they have some of the drum sounds that you'll hear later in the track, or, it'll help establish the key for the track. But you have these sort of bumpers on either side that are relatively low information content, but have enough of a groove that they can be these linkages that can hook songs together with easily for the DJ. So if you're trying to make a track that can be, easily mixed by DJs, maybe you want to consider that. By the way, if you're searching, I mentioned extended mixes if you want the DJ versions of stuff. If you just want the version for your Spotify playlist, so you don't have to listen to 32 bars of drums at the beginning, you can search for the radio edit. Those are often stripped down. Sometimes they even remove entire sections of the songs for those, but most importantly, they just, get right to the point, get right into the, main part of the song without having any of those befores and afters. Okay, so with that, let's load up our DJ software and look at how we can use these intros and outros to mix between two songs, and take a closer look into what makes a good intro and outro. Cool. So I'm going to load up Mix here. Feel free to follow along. Let's see. Hopefully this loads. There we go. Okay. Oh, another confusing interface to learn. So Mix is an open source DJ software. It's probably the most popular free open source DJ software that I'm aware of. And I think your UI should probably look like this when you first open it up. Yeah. So I'll show you in a second where you can configure that later, but just pick some folder where you can see your where you might put some of your music. And then, so I'll do a quick overview of the main parts of the interface. So up here at the top, you have this is where you can view the waveforms for the audio files that you load into these two decks. So you have a left deck, a right deck. These mimic two vinyl, two turntables and a mixer. That's what we got here. Mixer's in the middle, two turntables on either side. If you load a track from your library and you click and drag it in here, you can see that it shows you the waveform of the track, really zoomed out here. The colors tell you roughly kind of what the harmonic content is. I think red means there's more bass, and then I think because with analogy to like infrared light or the visible spectrum, those are the longer wavelength frequencies of light, and hence they correspond to the bass. In any case, and then up top you have the waveform itself. These little vertical lines here, these are the beat grid. So this is where the DJ software has detected that there is a beat there. And this is a common feature across Serato, Tractor, whatever DJ software you like. But in general, the software assumes that a track is at a single tempo, and then when you first load it and it does its analysis for the first time, it tries to figure out where that beat grid is. And usually it's pretty accurate, but I'll show you an example of what you can do if it's like not accurate. So down here you have your library of tracks that are in the tracks folder here. You can also, look at some of your other folders if you want. You can search here, so find all my songs. So that's, easy to do when you're at a gig. Cool. So in broad strokes, that's what we got. But before we get into actually like DJing with this, let's look at, let's set up a couple options here. So go into your options, go to preferences. And first thing you're going to want, you want to make sure that there is something set here for the main output. Otherwise, you're not going to hear anything. And, this software lets you configure, sending different audio streams to different outputs. Because a lot of times what you want to do in DJing is you want to preview what the next track is going to sound like in your headphones without actually playing it over the big speakers. So we won't get into that today because it's a little bit slightly more advanced, but just make sure you have some kind of thing set for your main output so that you can actually play your songs. Then in your library section, you'll want to, it's got a list of all the different folders that it is going to look for music in. So if you have some other folders that you contain MP3s or WAV files or whatever, go ahead and add those here. Make sure your rescan directories on startup box is checked so that it's getting the newest files each time. And I think that's pretty much all we need to set here for now. A lot of settings. Controllers, Mix supports a lot of different kind of controllers, and to be honest, DJing is more fun when you have a controller rather than just doing it with your keyboard and mouse. But didn't want y'all to go out and buy any gear just for this. Let's see, don't need that interface. Okay, so you can change like, the color scheme and stuff. Don't need this. Don't need that. Feel free to get into these more if you want. There is an auto DJing feature here. So you could just load up a playlist and turn on auto DJing. I don't know how well it compares to like Spotify's auto DJ, but it could be interesting to play around with. I noticed Spotify's auto DJ it's capable of doing some more complex transitions these days, which is pretty cool. But I don't know if you can just load arbitrary tracks in there and have it figure those out. Last time I tried it, it wasn't very good. So I think the playlists kind of have to be really specially curated to work well on Spotify, but you might try the auto DJ feature here. Recording. Okay, so if you want to record your live sets, this is the directory that they'll show up in. So you can record your DJ sets here. Enable BPM in the beat detection section. You'll want to enable BPM and beat detection because this, when you're loading in your tracks, it does an analysis of it, and then you can, figure out where the beats, or it'll automatically draw the beat grid for you. Cool. Key detection. You're going to want this as well. So, two sessions ago, we talked about the circle of fifths, right? And there's this concept in DJing called harmonic mixing. The idea is that when you mix from one track into the next, you're going to choose tracks that are close to each other in key. And by close, I mean a fifth apart. So if we look back at our circle of fifths wheel, it tends to sound smoother. Let's say your song is in the key of C. It tends to sound smoother if you're mixing from C into a song that's in F or G, or in C for that matter. So you don't necessarily have to follow this rule, but it can give you sort of a constraint to help inform your track selection if you're putting together a DJ set for a show or something. Or if you're just trying to decide what track to mix into next, you can pick a song that's in one of the neighboring keys. If you try to go from C to F sharp, for instance, it'll sound pretty distant, so you might not want to do that. But C to G, C to F, maybe even C to B flat. And there are two systems that make it easier to know which key your song is in relative to the other song. So there's this open key system, and then there's this Lancelot system, which I think is trying to get around the actual, there's a copyrighted system called Camelot. So this, free open source version is called Lancelot, but it's the same idea. And if you look at the numbers that show up, so that's what these systems do. They add this parallel system of numbers alongside the standard letter keys. So if you don't know that F and C are next to each other, you can look at the numbers. And in this system, C is we call that 8B. F is called 7B, and because they're one number apart, you know that they are a fifth apart. So it'd be very smooth to mix from a song in 8B to 7B. And in both these systems, they're numbered 1 through 12, and so 12 is next to 1 in this numbering system. I think I tend to prefer open key, but
does it start at like the bottom, start with fifths or something?
The circle of fifths doesn't have a top or bottom or orientation. It's just kind of arbitrary. And in open key, 1 corresponds to the key of C. In Lancelot, it's G sharp. Like, couldn't tell you why they chose that way, but so make sure enable key detection is turned on, and then I would just choose either open key / traditional or Lancelot / traditional, so you can see the actual keys that the songs are in. But this will help keep you on track. And then normalization. So tracks can be mixed at different levels of perceived loudness. So tracks are generally normalized so that their highest point is at 0. But nevertheless, 2 tracks, like one track might sound a lot louder than another. And that's because of the average amount of energy that's in a track could be higher or lower depending on the genre or what mastering plugins are used. So one metric we use to measure that perceived loudness is called LUFS. I don't know what it stands for, but basically if you have a song that's at -9 LUFS and another song that's at -6 LUFS, the -6 LUFS song will be perceived as louder because it has a higher amount of energy coming out it on average. And you may have heard of the loudness wars. If you're not redlining, you're not headlining. Especially in the commercial space, producers are constantly trying to figure out how to get their songs to be perceived louder because that just sounds better to the average person, if you have the volume knob set at the same setting. So the downside is that the higher you push this LUFS value, the more kind of distorted or squared off or truncated your waveform has to be. So when you have a really dynamic genre like classical music, you generally don't want that. You want the least amount of compression, waveform distortion, etc., because you want to preserve all those beautiful dynamics in the music. But for like hard-hitting, tear-out dubstep where it's like just walls of noise interspersed with like hard-hitting drums, like you're going to want to push it real hard. And it's part of the like sound of that genre. And of course, streaming services these days have their own normalization thing, like because it's not a pleasant experience for the listener if the tracks are jumping in a single playlist or jumping around in volume. So the platforms will often have a setting that lets you it'll automatically adjust the volume so the perceived loudness of the tracks is the same. But what we want to do here is we want to have this replay gain setting turned on, and that way Mix will basically handle that automatic volume adjustment, so you don't have to adjust the volume slider to make sure that your tracks sound equally loud as you're mixing between them. So this is another one of those convenient features that now that we're mixing with digital technology, we don't have to deal with the limitations of vinyl. Make sure that's turned on, replay gain. And I think that's everything. I feel like there's maybe one more setting I just wanted to mention. It's beat detection. Where's there should be one for the, oh, right. Yeah, in that first preferences setting in sound hardware, there's a key lock pitch bending engine setting. So rubber band R3, best quality. I think your computer should all be able to handle it. Because oftentimes when you're mixing, you might need to adjust the tempo or the key of a song a little bit to get it to fit with the next one. So you want to make sure that you're using a really high quality algorithm for doing that.
Should we set our?
Well, no, make sure have your main output. You can have your main output going to your headphones. They're plugged into the headphone jack, right?
Yeah, but like my sound output is external headphones, but like I don't have that as a see like here. We're going to external headphones. That's what it does enable to do. I don't have that here.
Okay.
I don't know why. Maybe it'll just go through my headphones anyway since it's plugged in.
Yeah, you might have to try. What if you change this?
I queried devices.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that's a good one. Okay, if you're not seeing your device show up, you can click this Query Devices button, and it'll have Mix scan all your, or it'll just.
Sorry.
It's okay. No, last class, it also did the same thing. Trying to do audio on Windows is a mistake. They might. Oh, sorry, Megan. You asked how to navigate to preferences. It's in the options menu, options, preferences, or Control P. I realized that you probably asked that question 10 minutes ago. Sorry about that. Okay. So now we got mix set up. Let's get deeper into the interface, into the exact buttons and knobs we're going to be pressing. Okay, so let's see. I'll just take my song Prezzo here. So you load it in. Actually, I'm gonna show how the analysis mode works. So if let's see, I'm gonna reset everything. Okay. So when you first have a track, starts out with no information on it. You click it, drag it in, and it does this analysis, and then you see the beat grid pop up, and cool, we're good to go. And actually, we can see here that Mix didn't quite get the beat grid right because I would expect it to start right here, but then it put it at the halfway point. I'll show more explicitly when I hand you all the tracks that we're going to use for the exercise how to do this, but for now, just slide this back, and oof, computer's really working hard today. Okay, actually, I'm gonna put it in preference mode. Maybe this will help, and then reset the beat grid. Okay, so some of the buttons are pretty self-explanatory. You have play, pause, right? Plays and pauses the track. If you have this slider here, this controls the playback speed. So if you drag it down, it speeds up. Or sorry, if you drag it up, it slows it down. You can also hear that it changes the pitch of the song, right? That's because we're physically speeding up and slowing down the song. So higher frequency sound are basically like if you have a sine wave, if you go through that sine wave faster, you basically get a higher pitch kind of sound. But you don't always want that, right? Like, in fact, you usually don't. You'd rather keep a song in its original key because it sounds the best there. And if you're trying to mix, especially if you're trying to do harmonic mixing, you don't want the key to drift all over the place. So the way to solve that is there's this key lock button here. So you click that. Now when you drag the pitch slider up and down, it doesn't actually change the pitch of the song anymore. Like so. By the way, if you double click on a parameter or right click on it, it'll reset it back to its original position. Okay. If you want to change the key of the song in like discrete steps, going up and down by half steps, you can click this little button here next to the detected key of the song. Right? Reset it back to F minor. And then another feature that we now have access to because we're on digital equipment is we have the sync button. So you have two tracks, maybe they differ by a few BPMs. In the olden days, you would have to like slow down the record a little bit to try to get them to sync up. But now we can just click this sync button, specifically the crown, and this makes it so that whenever I load in another track, even if it's at a different tempo, it'll automatically set the tracks to be the same tempo. So that way we don't have to like change it up. You just have to make sure to turn on sync on both tracks. And the crown icon is like which track is the leader. So the other deck will follow the leader's tempo. So this can get a little wonky if you've got, let's say you're playing a Moomaton track that's at like 100, and you want to mix it into a trap track that's at like 150. Using sync there might sound a little weird because you're really drastically changing the tempo of two tracks. So for those cases, you either got to like find a better place to mix the two tracks into each other, or gradually get there by mixing through a progressively faster and faster series of tracks. But there are techniques that I'll show that you can subtly adjust the tempo, and listeners won't really be able to perceive consciously that the tempo is changing. You get kind of like boil the frog a little bit. Let's see, a couple other things to touch on. We have this magnet icon. So in Ableton, we've talked about quantization. This is like where we adjust the rhythm to be directly on the grid. This quantize button, the magnet, makes sure that all of our button presses line up exactly on the grid. So when we press play, Mix will force it to land right on the beat. Or if we click one of these, EQ kill switch buttons, it'll land right on the beat. And so this helps us get a really clean mix. So between tempo sync and this beat grid quantize button, we can get all of our beats to line up really nicely. And these guardrails are really helpful for DJing on on laptops, or CDJs also have these features as well. Let's see, the eject button just unloads the deck, could be useful. Or if you click it again, it will reload the track that you dismissed. And let's see, this is, okay, I don't know what slip mode is. These buttons here, these are hot cue buttons. So these allow you to jump directly to a specific point in a song. So generally when you're preparing your DJ set, you would, I like to set these cue points at like the place where the outro starts, maybe the place where the drops start, place where the build-up starts. So that way I can both see where I am in the track, and also if I want to cut to a certain part really quickly, I have those hot cues. So that's part of preparing a DJ set or having your library ready. And there's a few other buttons here. Won't really get into them. Not too necessary, but let's look at the mixer here real quick. So in the center, we have this crossfader. We're going to use this for our first simple transition. Basically, when it's in the middle, both decks are at their full volume. And then when it's on the left, only the left deck is at full volume and the right deck is silent, and then vice versa. So basically, as you're sliding it from left to right, you go from just the left deck to both decks when you're in the middle to just the right deck. So this is like the easiest affordance you have for switching smoothly between two tracks. You basically gradually make one louder and one quieter. You have volume. You have volume sliders for just the decks, and then you have these EQ knobs and kill switches as well. So I think you can configure the crossover frequencies for these, like which frequencies they start taking effect at. But these will be really important for the next transition we look at, because these allow you to do kind of more subtle things than just directly changing the volume. You can take the bass out of one track and switch it with the bass of another track using the low cut and high cut EQs. Yeah. Mix also has some effects in it as well. I won't get into those here, but let's do our first transition. So I'm going to drop a couple tracks in the Discord, so feel free to download them. Let's see. Got Do It Now, and then my track I Don't Trust Like That, which are there any Eric Andre fans here? It's a remix I did of an Eric Andre skit. So go ahead and download both those tracks. We're going to put I Don't Trust Like That on the first deck, and we're going to put Do It Now on the second deck. Actually, I think I Don't Trust Like That is the one that has the beat grid that's messed up. So if you first load it in there, it does its analysis. Okay, right. So the song actually starts right here, but Mix detected this as the first beat, and so now it's the grid is off by like half a measure. So what we can do is we can click on the waveform up here itself and slide it over until the blue playhead lines up right on the first beat. And then once you do that, you can click this adjust beat grid button, and it will redraw the beat grid starting from that point, and then everything's nice and lined up. If you don't do that, then it's gonna mess up our mixing. Is everyone able to do that part? I'll run it again, just so you can see. So no analysis to start. I load it in. We do the analysis. I click up here and I drag it over until the blue playhead is right on that first beat. Yep. And then I click this little adjust beat grid button, which looks like 4 vertical lines.
We want to put that like the drop, or
no. So what happened here is that Mix, when it applied its beat detection algorithm, it didn't put the grid on the right beats.
How do you do
it? Because I know the song starts with the kick drum right on the downbeat, so there should be the grid should be here. You would listen to your track and observe that. Maybe let's say I wonder how I could demonstrate that. Okay.
I guess mine. Well, like mine, I think mine's like that.
Mm. Yeah, if you did these steps, then you should get it to now be perfectly on the grid. All right, so we did that.
Well, so that's the cue.
No. Okay, so the beat grid is where Mix has detected the kick drum hits and the tempo for the track.
But the adjust beat button changes your cue.
Well, yeah, because so Mix does set a cue point right at the start of the track. There's other hot cues that you can define custom. Are you having trouble over there? Do you need help? Okay. Yeah, just wherever you can either change your preferences to add that folder.
Just drag the track right to
Let me just come over and check. Okay. Yeah, and then left click and drag it. Oh wait, you're on Mac. Yeah. Hmm? Okay, I guess you can double click on it. But I think if you do the other one, if you just double click on it, yeah, it's going to replace it. You might just have to click with one finger on one hand and then drag with the other finger. You're okay. You're on a Mac. You're able to do it. Okay.
How did you do it on the second?
Oh, I just dragged it into like this.
Oh, we're almost there. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
We mess up when we click adjust decrease, how can we reset it? Or we just have to do it different.
Well, so if you mess it up, you can always unload the track by clicking that button and then two finger clicking on. Well, you might want to reanalyze it.
Oh, I see. Right click.
Yeah, you would click reset.
Where's reset?
Or I guess clear all.
BPM.
Or yeah, because it does the volume analysis on it too when you load the track. Okay. All right, so I don't trust like that. Okay, so now's a good time to, before we actually start mixing these two tracks, we're gonna mix the outro of I don't trust like that into the intro of Do It Now. So let's give a quick listen to the intros and outros here. So for this first one, what I want to point out is I'm starting off like with the kick is like heavily filtered, so there's no bass, right? And it's kind of like, it's going to have the main hook of the track, and it's going to have a lot of reverb on it, so it sounds kind of spacey and far away. But the point is the bass is out. There's like not a lot of low frequencies to begin with, so that creates space for the DJ to mix in, and a very simple instrumentation, just like simple kick drum, maybe a few percussion hits. So here's what that sounds like. Rip. Pretty sparse. Then we bring the bass in. Okay, and then it goes into the build-up, but you see how we kind of, kept things pretty sparse, but also started incorporating some of the thematic material. So we're kind of starting to build the world of the track, but we've got like 16 bars here where not a whole lot is going on, but enough to kind of move the track forward. And then similarly here in the outro, let's see, I think this is roughly where it starts. I like to think of the outro as kind of like the credits scene for a track. So it's like, maybe you'll have some different sounds that you've used earlier in the track that will come in and kind of like remind the listener, oh yeah, that character, and it will kind of like gradually pull the energy out, doing kind of like the reverse of the intro. So you'll hear like in the second half of the outro, I'm going to take the bass out, so that also allows for easier mixing. So here's what that sounds like. Then it just kick and some percussion and not a whole lot going on. Good grief. I think this is because I'm streaming. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna play this outside of the. of the DJ software.
Well, that's the thing. Is there a button just to change the cue to a different line?
Let me look at your screen because I don't really understand that question.
Like I don't know why the cue is here now. I don't know how it ended up there, but like I want it to be here when the beat comes in.
Uh-huh.
So how do I change that?
Let's see. Oh, sorry. Well, you could set a custom
Set a
cue
custom,
point.
Yeah, let if hot cue is set. Right click, oops, and then-
Yeah, so now whenever you click 1, it'll go there. Okay, sorry. So the outro to I Don't Trust Like That sounds like this. Pretty DJ friendly. Cool. So again, when you're DJing from one track to the other, you want kind of a more sparse instrumentation because you're going to be putting 2 tracks together. And if they're both really dense, then it's just going to sound cluttered and kind of messy. So then our other track here, Do It Now, this also starts off with just some percussion and like the main sample. It also starts with the low frequencies taken out, and then it adds in the kick. So you have a natural, you're adding more and more energy throughout the intro. So there is a sense of progression, but it doesn't get too like detailed yet. So that sounds like this. It's a simple loop. This could go well on pretty much anything. No bass to try to establish a harmonic center. Some kind of riser. Cool. Then that starts to get into like the build up for the track. And then similarly with the outro, basically doing the whole thing in reverse. Or let's see, let's start. This drums and bass. So yeah, intro and outro can be nice because you don't have to be super creative. You can just, do something simple that's, works well enough.
Do it now.
Cool. So let's put those together and hear what that would sound like if you're actually mixing between the two. One thing I can do is turn off the preview of my OBS. Okay, hopefully this saves a little bit of load. Let me close this, close as many tabs as possible, close Discord. Okay. All right. So I've got a I Don't Trust Like That load in the deck. And actually, even before we do the mix itself, let's put a marker indicating where the drop starts, or a hot cue. So we fast forward to right around, let's see. Okay, so right around here. So so DJs need to be able to count to 4, and they need to be able to count to 8. That's all the math that's involved here. So I'll I'll like count out right before the beat is, or right before the outro starts, and then just before that outro hits, I'm going to click the 8 button down here because I'm going to set a hot cue there, and then that'll give us a marker that we can aim for when we start to do our mix. So, let's see. 2. Okay. Oops. And because I have this magnet quantize, icon turned on, I might have been a little early, might have been a little late, but it put it right on that spot. So, why don't
you put it where your outro started?
Yeah, right where the very first beat of the outro. So, give that a shot. You should end up about here. There should be a little bit of this like yellow green right here, a little bit of red orange right after it. You should see this like, waveform getting a little shorter going into it just before it. So give that a shot and see if you can land your hot cue right on when the outro starts. I know this may seem tedious, but it becomes second nature once you've done this.
So you would do that live, just playing the track and hitting it.
No, I would do this as part of my preparation. I would set all these hot cues up. Because then when
you were doing it live, you could just hit it and hopefully it will just land on the right beat. And ideally you have like a partner system. Okay.
I think this is more likely to show up if you're using this this beat loop function. So, let's see. Yeah, this beat loop function. So, another useful thing you can do with these outros is you can basically loop, let's say 32 beats, which is eight measures in 4/4 time. You can loop that, and then it'll kind of do this loop over and over and over again, and you can kind of just wait there or figure out what song you want to play next. Yeah, or turn it into a transition. I have a tutorial video where I show a few different kinds of transitions with this technique, which I'll also drop in the recap email. But I think this is probably more likely when you drop a spontaneous.
You're like, oh, let's do
cue.
that, hit the cue, and then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm getting to the outro. Okay, loop it. Now I can take a breath, smoke a cigarette, whatever, hit my vape.
The loop
and then
works based on the cue, or does it work anytime?
No, it works anywhere. Like you can put it here.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That will also be magnetized.
Yeah, it should. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, it even goes forward sometimes.
Yeah, I think it
just goes to the closest.
Yeah. And delete that. If you mess up, by the way, you can right click or 2-finger click and click the delete button. But is everyone able to get cue point 8 here at the outro? What's up? Having trouble?
Kind of feels weird.
Let's see. Do you have the magnet icon turned on?
Yeah, it just does it to here rather than to right here.
Okay, let's see. Let's zoom in a little bit. Oh, wait.
It doesn't do it very well. It only really does it on the scroll.
Oh, there. Okay. There. Oh, yeah. Wait, how are you? There we go. Okay. Let's see. So we want. Oops. I'm gonna go back to the beginning here. I want to make sure you did the. Oh, you didn't reset the beat grid.
Okay.
So first we want to slide this here so it's right at the start, and then click this redraw beat grid. So now the beat grid is actually lined up with the kick drums, because first for this track it never gets it right. So now if we go back here, okay, now we'll delete this. All right, why don't you give it another shot? I don't trust like that, and then that's the beat. Mm. Boo-doop, boop-a-doop. Do-do-do, do-do-do.
I'm just curious, after we turn, if I play with the loop thing, I turned it off. Is there a way to get rid of the highlighted area? So it's not stick around, I guess.
Hmm. Uh, hmm. Um, let's see. Might not be possible. I mean, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Was everyone able to get that? Okay. So now we got I don't trust like that loaded in our top deck. We'll put do it now in our right deck. And remember, we want these both to be in sync with each other. So make sure to click the sync button on deck 2 when you first load it in. So for this first transition, we're gonna keep it real simple. We're gonna play I Don't Trust Like That. Then right when the playhead gets to 8, or like a micro moment before, we're gonna click play on deck 2. So that'll start Do It Now right. It'll start the intro of Do It Now right when the outro of I Don't Trust Like That starts. We have our magnet quantize turned on, so we'll stay on the grid. And then as the intros and outros are playing against each other, we're going to gradually drag the crossfader from the left all the way to the right. And this will be like a really simple in sync kind of transition. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So. Okay. Let's see. How do I want to? Let me try. I'm going to try disabling my camera too. Sorry, this is not really illustrative. Okay, I'm just going to disable my camera for a moment. Let's see, preview. Okay. And I'm going to turn on performance mode. All right, let's. It put the cue point for your second song.
Like before it was over here even. I don't even know how it got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to just change. How do you just change the normal cue point? Oh, how'd you do that? You just click.
You click the so you can set ad hoc cue points using this cue button.
Oh, I thought that goes to your main cue.
This isn't a feature I use all that often, but if you click and hold the cue button, it'll start playing from the cue, and then you click the play button and it continues. So usually what you do, this is something that you often do when you're trying to beat match. You'll cue over and over and over again, and then you'll like hold it down, and then you'll swap to playing it, and then you take your hand off the cue button. I don't really use that feature that much. Yeah, do you see how you're holding it down and it's playing, but then as soon as you let go, it stops? Yeah.
But it's weird. Okay, so I guess to go to your cue, you right click on it.
Mm-hmm.
To set a new cue, you left. Okay, that's weird. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see if. See, I don't have. What's up?
Setting your audio buffer. I don't know what this needs to be. It needs to be higher.
Mm.
That's the load, it's like the buffer.
Yeah. Let's see.
So
Okay. I mean, my audio buffer is already maxed out. Let me see. Let's see. it's like it's not using my graphics card. Maybe I can disable the waveforms. Maybe I'll drastically turn the frame rate down. Visual gain. Okay, let me try this and see if this works. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to the beginning of my track here. Okay. Or let's see, eject. Okay. All right, let's try again. All right, I'm going to play. When it lands on 8, I'm going to start my second deck, and then I'm going to gradually slide the crossfader across to move smoothly from one track to the next. All right, here we go. Okay. All right, so everyone give that a shot. See if you're able to do it. Use the restroom real quick. Cool. How are people doing that? That makes sense? Check the...
When you're DJing,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to change tempos,
Mm-hmm.
would you like switch to a different track at a different tempo? That's your target tempo. Have it synced to the first one. Then, like while it's playing, reset the speed to the base tempo of your second track, and then use that to make the next one, or how do you switch?
Yeah, so the question's about switching tempo. There's a couple ways to do that. I'll show you in this next variation, this more complex variation, I'll show you how, because if you'll notice, I Don't Trust Like That is 126 beats per minute. Do It Now is actually 124 beats per minute. And we would prefer to play tracks in their original tempo and their original key. So for this next transition, during the second half of it, we're going to gradually adjust the tempo on the beat. And it's going to, the listener won't really consciously perceive it, but by the time the next track comes in, we'll be at its tempo.
So you do it with what?
Yeah, so that's one way. And this, works well if the tracks are fairly close in tempo. There are specialized tracks called DJ tools that have a tempo transition in them. So if you want to go from like house at 128 to dubstep at 140, you might use a DJ tool track that does that speed up halfway through.
Pretty much just like play that between two songs.
Yeah, you'd have your house track, mix it into the DJ tool. Then when the speed up happens, you mix it. Now that makes the sync button not work so well and the beat grid for that matter, because you have, for the most part, your beat grid assumes that there's going to be a constant tempo. Though I did notice that in the, where the heck is that? Here it is. Okay. In the beat detection preferences, the analyzer, you don't have to have it assume a constant tempo. So you could, I guess, it might be able to pick up on that transition and actually have a beat grid that stays in sync, even during the tempo transition.
Yeah, dynamic beat grid.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So, yeah. So just because there's a tempo change in the middle of your song doesn't necessarily mean you can't use some of these modern digital guardrail type of things. But that's another option. Or maybe you can switch from a part of a song where the tempo is not really clear, like maybe it's just a bunch of ambient noise and sound effects. Especially like at the end of a drop, maybe you have like a big sort of impact sound effect and it sort of clears the air. Then you can just switch into a completely different tempo, and that won't sound weird to the listener. It'll just sound dramatic, like, oh, whoa, we're changing it up. Yeah, so few different options, and there's as many ways to transition between two songs as there are DJs. So. All right, so let's look at a little bit more complex of a transition. So I mentioned these EQ knobs here. So one of my favorite and versatile transitions I like to do is I start with the bass taken out of deck 2, right? So I have all the bass in deck 1, no bass in deck 2, and maybe I even take the highs out of deck 2 as well, so that it sounds kind of far away. Then I'll start playing the outro into the intro. I'll gradually bring in the highs so that it sounds like it's coming together or coming closer. And then I'll pull the bass out of deck 1. So that and we've talked a lot about this where we like pull the kick drum out of the last measure before a turnaround, or we otherwise, cut the bass because that creates that sensation of like wanting in the listener. And then right when the like let's say halfway through the outro hits, I bring in the bass from deck 2, and so that creates this kind of dramatic moment where the bass from one track is playing over the mids and trebles of the other track, and then I'll gradually filter it out or something. So, but this way we're kind of getting the tracks to have even more of a conversation with each other rather than just like, all right, this first one got quieter and then that last one got louder, and it can create some really cool moments for the listener where like this familiar track gets recontextualized by this new track that's coming in, and maybe they've never heard them played on top of each other before, and it can my favorite moments are all those transitions. So what I'm going to do is okay. So what I'm going to do is same thing as before. I'm going to start I Don't Trust Like That. When it hits 8, I'm going to hit play on Do It Now. But this time, the crossfader is gonna start in the middle. So this track's gonna be played at full volume. But I'm gonna have the lows taken out, right? So I know this track is already engineered to not have any low frequencies in the first part of the intro, but just for illustration purposes, I'm taking it out here. And then yeah, and then as the tracks continue to play together, I'll let them play. Then when we get close to the halfway point, I'm going to start pulling the lows out of I Don't Trust Like That, right? So it's going to start to create that sensation of something's missing. And then right when the halfway point hits, I'm going to turn off the kill switch on the lows for Do It Now. It's going to bring the bass in. And then one last thing to sweeten the deal, I'm going to gradually bring the tempo of the tracks down. Oh, sorry, this needs to be in sync. I'm going to gradually bring the tempos of the tracks down. Like I'm going to click the minus sign, let's say, at the beginning of each measure. So it like ticks down slightly. And then by the end of it, Do It Now will be playing at 124, which is its original tempo, instead of 126, which is what I Don't Trust Like That is at. I forgot to point out that I Don't Trust Like That's in C minor. Do It Now is in F minor. These songs are a fifth apart. So this follows that harmonic mixing idea that we talked about of picking two songs that are closely related. So I know there's a lot of words. Let me just run through it. Y'all can hear how it sounds. So take the lows out of Do It Now. Here we go. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying minimizing this. Okay, let me try again. Okay. Three, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, 2, 3, 4, pulling out the bass. I missed that slightly, but okay. 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Down tempo, down tempo, down tempo, home tempo.
Is there ways to like program that so you don't have to do it manually?
Like a macro of some sort. I'm not sure. That's a good question. It seems like something that could exist, but it would. Yeah, that would be something interesting to look into. I've never used that. It might, there's no MIDI information here, right? Well, I guess the beat grid could be represented as MIDI.
But there must be, if this is programmed to be controlled with hardware, is it not MIDI hardware? Some of it at least must be.
Yeah, I assume it's using MIDI to communicate from the hardware to the software. And yeah, I think in principle you could program a macro to do that. But different songs have different outro intro lengths, so you may have to program a whole bunch of different subtle variations on it. And it's easy enough to do once you practice that motion a few times.
What was the minus button?
Yeah, so over here, this is the the tempo slider. So when the transition completes, I want my mix to be in the tempo of Do It Now, which will be the main track playing. It's at 124. So I want to gradually decrease the tempo from 126 to 124. And with these pluses and minus buttons, you can do it in like small increments. And then at the very end, I right-clicked to put it right in the center. And I was doing it on when the measure starts, because that is like we've talked about how that's kind of an important beat. It gets a lot of emphasis. It's also like a natural kind of cut point or seam. So you can do a small transitional thing at that beat, and it will sound, it'll be kind of invisible to the listener. So instead of just like kind of doing it randomly, the listener might start to notice, oh, they're slowing down the song. I mean, it'd be even 2 beats per minute. That's extremely subtle. So they, you can slop it up and probably no one notice. But if you're going from, I don't know, like 124 to 132, listener might notice if you were kind of doing it randomly. So this is just like another way to another fine layer of polish on this particular technique. So I'll run through that again just because I know that was a lot of button changes, and then y'all can practice it. So make sure we got sync turned on. They're both at 126. Put this back to the beginning. All right, here we go. Take the lows out. Five, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Turn the tempo down. Turn the tempo down. Turn the tempo down. Bring it to home. And the nice thing about this one too is like you get a little bit more of that first track playing on top of the second. So you get that interesting recontextualization. Like when he says, do it now one last time as the song's ending, and then it bleeds over to the next track, you get kind of more of that conversation, which can be fun. Okay. Folks want to give that one a shot? Check the chat. Anything but problem solved. What do you mean strongest as ever? See if anyone on the Discord has any questions. I also saw Nurk drop some homework in the chat, so maybe we can. Oh, you're Nurk? Oh, yes. Yeah, we can try that. Okay. Let's see, new project. Upload. What happened? Did you crash? Are they on both?
Yeah, weird. See? Try.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the start. So
Yep.
magnets are on.
Yep.
I'll play the top one. Now they're not lined up.
Well, this track's at 140 and this is at 117.
Oh, am I
so
not?
that's probably.
Oh, it's because I wasn't synced. Yeah. Okay.
Let's try it again.
That makes sense. That would make sense. Yeah. Okay. No.
There you go. Uploaded audio contains copyright lyrics. Wow. That's what it says. Very interesting. I wonder how their content ID system is working. Well,
Well, it is. I do have like a sample in there.
Mm-hmm.
It could be copied,
Do you know where you got that sample?
pirated somewhere. At least one of them.
Got it. Okay. Huh. Interesting.
So it just won't do it.
I guess not.
That's
I've had Suno be very
But it's from like a sample pack, so that why are sample pack samples get struck for copy?
well, they're not supposed to be because the sample is free use.
Weird.
So I think Suno's copyright filter is actually way too aggressive because like,
Sure, they want to be careful.
well, like I made a track, just a pretty simple track in Ableton, definitely original. I put all the sounds there and I uploaded it and it was like, this contains copyrighted material. So I think it's doing some very loose kind of fingerprinting.
Yeah, if it's doing it that quickly, it must.
Yeah, or like some AI-based fingerprinting that catches or that has a lot of false positives. Whereas with like the old school content ID, it's pretty easy to get around just by like changing the key or maybe the tempo or other things like that. So, curious. How are people doing on that other kind of transition?
So I realize I've been forgetting to pull the kill switch on the lows of track 2 off.
Yeah, so you start with track 2 with the lows out.
And then you fade out the lows of the track 1.
Yeah.
Before the track ends.
Mm-hmm. Well, here I'm doing it right before the halfway point in the outro. Another way you could do it is you could hit the kill switch at like measure 7 or 8. And that'll be a kind of a sharper kind of movement gesture. And of course, this is easier to do with actual hardware. But another variation you might try is like gradually bringing in the highs on deck 1 when it's first starting to play. I'll show what that sounds like. I'll start with the highs out as well. Oops. I did not have the sync button turned on. It actually, in this track, it doesn't quite work though, because like pretty much it's only high frequency information in the first part of the track because it's just like that hi-hat loop. So it doesn't really work so well here. But for vocals, I think it can work really well because like the vocal will start off kind of muddled and far away, and then it gradually comes more into focus.
So if you were using Mix,
Mm-hmm.
do you only use Mix Live or do you pre-record a set of Mix? You said you do that.
Yeah, you can record, basically just records every bit of audio that's coming out. You just click this record button up top.
And when you're doing that, you're using external hardware. Or when you do it with your mouse.
I have a small controller that I like to use.
And when you plug it in, it just automatically moves up to the right stuff.
Well, I actually use Tractor because my hardware is from Native Instruments, and I had to spend quite a bit of time remapping it for the way I wanted to use it. But Mix does support a lot of hardware, different hardware options. But yeah, in Ableton, I have more control over the transitions. I can like,
3 tracks.
3 tracks, yeah. I can chop it up in different ways. I can apply different kinds of effects on it.
The loop, there are cool. It is very powerful what you can do with the looping and stuff, though. Like you can pretty much create fully new songs just live, going to cues and looping different amounts and whatever.
Mm-hmm. I've also noticed that DJs have it's like a specialized piece of drum sample playback hardware that they just use for adding arbitrary like drum rolls to things. What is that drum roll equipment that DJs use? Yeah, here we go. I think that sounds right. Yeah. If you look closely at live sets, you might start to see a piece of gear that looks like this. basically you can just like add in a drum roll wherever you want, so you can create like more dramatic transitions, or you can create transitions out of stuff that wasn't a transition.
So that's just like a drum machine that has a bunch of presets in it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to like do live remixes. I've only heard it used for adding snare rolls to things, but yeah, here's I guess is a like the full battle station setup. Yeah, then you really get into the like live remixing idea.
That like just that's a tax. That's essential.
Yeah, and even Mix has like sample decks on it where you can trigger one shots. Like you want to put a siren on.
I was about to say.
Yeah, you can have one of those somewhere in here. But often, for the really complex mashups, DJs are often just creating those in Ableton and then playing them in their sets. But sometimes some DJs like the decks are their creative palette, their canvas, and so they do they will make live mashups there. All right, was everyone able to do that like somewhat more complicated transition? Okay, cool. Let's see. Honestly, that's about as far as I was expecting there to be more homework for us to listen to. But maybe I could talk about, maybe I can show how you might use the beat loop function to create a transition there, because we haven't really talked about that. That's what this button is. So, if I'm playing here, oops, sorry. So let's say I want to loop this, 8 measures here so I can figure out what I want to do next. So I'll set this beat loop to 32. 32 divided by 4 is 8. 32 beats divided by 4 beats is 8 measures, so that's the right amount. So click that. Okay, and now, this will just keep looping until I'm ready to do something different. So let's say this is C minor. All right, I'll bring in my song Keep It Pushing. I'll sync it. It's in E minor. So I'm going to push it to F minor just for this transition. That way it sounds smoother with, my C minor here, right? And then when I'm ready to fully switch it over, I'll drop this back to its home key of E minor. So let's see, I'll do the same kind of transition. I'll take the lows out. I'm going to turn the loop off. And then right when the song or right when this transition ends, I'm going to drop this down to E minor. Kind of works a little bit. Can be a little dramatic, but.
And you wouldn't just keep it in the other key, just.
I mean, there's nothing stopping me. I might. To me, it sounds a little strained, but.
Can you switch it one up or down on the key again? Okay, so yours aren't not as flipping, mine don't go in number.
No, they go by half steps.
So you have to find yours.
Yeah. So like, this happened to work because like, E minor happens to be a half step away from F minor, which is a fifth away from C minor. Yeah. Right? But see, it's easy math. It's just like, I don't know, remembering which easy math applies to any given situation.
It's not base 10, then there's different there's lots of different math.
Mm-hmm.
Math of nature.
Right. Let's see. Prezzo is in F minor. So this track, in this track, I do have the bass playing pretty much from the start. So in this case, killing the bass at the beginning actually helps a lot more, right? So like, let me just play this real quick. Right, if I'm trying to transition one song to the next, it's actually really effective here for me to take out the lows because so much of the track, or there is so much energy in the bass already from the start. And maybe another thing to point out here too. So in this track, I start with like one measure of like a drum fill, and the song actually starts here. So probably what I'd want to do is put a cue point there. And then now, if I'm doing my transition, I'd want to, and I want to start at the beginning. I'd want to make sure I cue my next track here, right? So the drum fill from the beginning lines up with or when the drum fill completes and the intro properly starts, it lines up with my other track. And this is why another reason why you want to like annotate your tracks with proper cue points.
That's why I feel like there's got to be, maybe not in this software, but in more professional, expensive, whatever software, there's got to be macros and ways to set that up. That like, oh, here's the drop, but I want it to pre-play one bar. I feel like that's.
Yeah, whenever I've done it, I've like written out my set list and given myself transition notes or like practice the transitions. And knowing your library really well is another part of DJing. So yeah, if I was transitioning this song, so I'll again, same kind of transition, except I'm going to start this track a little bit sooner.
Why don't you let the cue point the beat of however many before that? So it's like, not that one, I mean on the first track.
Oh, I mean, I could, but it's kind of like this. Putting a cue point here would only make sense if I'm transitioning it into songs that.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I can just count it. I can know like, okay, I need a measure, so I'll just hit it on the 7. So let's see, just back it up. One, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 4. That. Now speed up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't have. I guess I didn't have the sync turned on properly.
No.
But it should have been adjusting this track up as well.
Oh no, but it hasn't been. I've been doing it before. Because I think the one on the deck 1 is still set as the master sync track.
Oh, I guess I gotta. Let's see.
See, they're independent.
Oh, I gotta. God, I hate this UI. It's not enough to click the sync button. You have to click the crown.
That doesn't get lit up.
Right, that doesn't get lit up.
And then it doesn't.
Yeah.
So you.
I don't know.
So you would have. But deck 1 is outro and ending, so does it matter if you are changing the speed of both together?
Well, because like he says, I don't trust like that right on the beat, and I want that to line up perfectly when the handoff happens. Yeah. Yeah, and the ear can be really sensitive to these slight.
So you have to have that crown and sync turned on before you do anything, but it has to be turned on after your main crown.
Yeah, so you pick your, usually I would set it up, I'd load my first track in deck 1, elect it to be the leader. then put my other track on and make sure to click. Like, I guess I've already set it up now, but
Right.
yeah, so now this should all work out as expected, except I lost my cue point because I probably loaded a different copy of this song. Okay, because I've got too many copies. Okay, right, so now when I do this, it should all be perfectly in time. Okay. No, I don't have to do anything. Or I guess I want to adjust the tempo on the beat. There we go. Now we said that right on the downbeat. Okay.
Yeah, that is a weird UI.
Yeah. Let's see.
Wait, can you just hit play where your mouse is right now?
Yep.
So now, okay, so when it looks like when the track on deck 1 finished, it then switches your deck 2 to music.
Yes, that's correct. Right. So now
that makes sense.
Yeah. So now, this track I would be playing here, and then I'll mix from deck 2 into deck 1. So, oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay. Oh, there's a lot of bass there.
If this has all these cool key and key detection things, why doesn't Ableton have that?
I mean, Ableton does have like it's got Ableton has that like convert melody to MIDI. It's got convert
But
drum beat.
If I drag in a track, you can't just tell me the tempo and what key it's for this app.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why Ableton has all the algorithms to be able to do it. Beat Seeker. Okay, so for $29, you can buy a plugin that detects the signal's BPM.
Or yeah, I can just drag it.
Or you can drag it into mix, figure out the tempo, drag it back in. Warp this track from here. Trying to warp from here straight. Note first bar, retract height, then select one. Also unselect warp long samples. Yeah, I mean, okay, uncheck warp long samples. I guess mix just puts that capability front and center. Usually people aren't loading, even though
it seems like something. It seemed like in Ableton they would be very, very useful features people would use all the time.
Maybe. I mean, for drums, certainly. And that's a lot of what mix is relying on. It needs those transients, those sharp moments of energy to trigger its beat detection algorithm. So yeah. But yeah, this Beat Seeker plugin could do it. Let's see, some library organization tips. So I like to organize my tracks by BPM. So one folder is for 100 to 110, 110 to 120, 120, 130. That usually lines up nicely with genre as well. And that's the tempo is kind of the strongest characteristic of a song that people are dancing to. It's like the thing that sets the energy of a track. It's not really the key. I mean, to some extent, it's the instrumentation, but it's like the most coarse metric for assessing what the energetic quality of a song is. So, and typically, you're going to be looking to pick the next song based on one that's in a similar tempo in a closely related key. And one way I like to organize my DJ sets, or I like to plan my sets, are start with like slower tempo stuff, so like 80, 90, 100, then gradually like increase the tempo of the tracks I'm choosing throughout the set, which kind of creates this rising sense of energy. Like as the set gets deeper, we're like getting more and more urgency in the tempo. Then maybe at the end, if I want to bring the energy back down, I can suddenly switch to a much slower song. But track selection is like 90% of what DJing is. So if you've got a good ear for putting together playlists, then you've got like the core DJ skill set. And I've literally been to shows. I think it was Square Pusher at Webster Hall, where literally he like played the first track or played the track, let it go to the end, then played the second track, and then let it go to the end. So he's barely even DJing. It was just like curation, I guess.
What's he doing?
As far as I know, he was just up there like doing this, but not really mixing or playing anything. I guess he did all his work in the studio ahead of time, so he didn't have to do much for us on stage.
I just discovered it has a tuner effect, I guess, that you can put on a track.
Okay.
And it tells me that's
like a guitar tuner?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So that's
Nice. Let's see. Yeah, last time I taught the class, we had a fellow DJ, and he brought in some of his gear, and we spent some time doing some show and tell. So that's why I'm sort of stalling for time here. But if there's if people want to leave now, feel free. Or folks have more questions. Basically, the homework is going to be to add an intro and outro to a song that you've been working on, and then DJ the song into itself, or into another song if you want. If you don't have another song, that's fine. But you could, literally take the. Here, I'll do it now.
So how would we so that we would take or make a song that doesn't have like a build up?
Well,
as the intro.
Well, you want to have like the DJ intro part, and then it could go either directly into a build up, or it could go into a verse.
You would do an intro to a build up.
Yeah, like for instance, so this song of mine called Prezzo, it does the DJ intro, and then it goes right into a build up. So it sounds like this. Oh my God. You're killing me, Smalls.
Switch over to your Mac.
Someday. I should have. I'll just play it here. Maybe. Next week is going to be songwriting, like overall song structure, how to create a song from beginning to end. We'll kind of do some deep dive case studies on one or two of my tracks. Maybe I'll throw in an AI segment, because I know you were really curious about seeing how some of these AI tools work. So maybe I'll make a quick track using Suno.
I'm interested in where they go beyond just prompting for audio, because I don't find that interesting.
Fair enough. Okay.
I'm thinking oh, we have all this AI stuff. So are we coming up with new sounds and new effects, or is it just creating bullshit using AI? It's based on training.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's all. Oh yeah, I want to hear the express.
Oh right.
Computer has had enough.
Right. It's like, can you just replace me with AI? See you later, Rob.
Maybe email code or something. I'm curious.
Here, let me close mix now that we don't need it anymore. Okay, there we go. Okay.
And so this intro is 16 bars.
Yeah, so that was 8. Now we're in the second 8. This is already kind of teasing the melody, by the way. Build up.
So it would be normal. Okay, I guess that makes sense. It'd be normal to go from the outro of a different song into that intro, and then the build up comes there.
Yeah.
That makes okay. I don't know what I'm singing about it. It just makes sense. I guess a lot of the stuff that I'm making is like harder.
Uh huh.
I don't know. It doesn't play around.
Yeah.
But okay, I get it.
Then I mean, so this song of mine, "Put 'Em Down," has a proper like intro and then a verse. So I think you'll hear the difference if it loads. Well, while that's trying to load. Okay, there. So intro, just drums and some characteristic sound effects.
Reset.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. See y'all later. Sure thing. See you next week. And then you can call this the first verse. Yeah.
Step, I guess.
Yeah. Trap step.
What's
'Cause it's like a little fast. It's like at 150.
You make like all genre of stuff.
Yeah. This has some like psytrance in it, some drum and bass in
What
it.
would you say is your like favorite stuff to make or to listen to?
Gosh. I mean, I got started on dubstep because there's this website called turntable.fm where it's like a chat room and you took turns DJing for each other. My girlfriend at the time introduced me to it, and we would hang out in the dubstep room and they were playing all these like dubstep bangers. And that was like the first time I knew what to search for EDM. Like I knew it was out there somewhere, but I just didn't have the terminology for it. And then I went to this one music festival and I learned about electro house, and that's like more 4-on-the-floor type of beats, and that got me really excited. And then I don't know, I just gradually started accumulating more and more subgenres. I like psytrance a lot, but I honestly like in my own productions I like to blend a lot of different genres to keep it like, you know, keep it fresh, keep it surprising.
That's how you create the next hot genre.
Yeah, by smashing together.
Like that's all, it's like, oh, what happened if you like house drums at like a garage, and, you know, like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, house garage. like,
I'm always surprised when new genres emerge because it seems like we should have tried everything by now, and
the
yet.
thing is, it's the math of nature. It's infinite. It's infinite combination.
It's a flow art. It's here's the psytrance part. 'Cause I want to change that for the second drop, you know?
Only this one's on, right?
Oh, is that true? I guess you're right. There we go. I knew it sounded shitty.
Listen to my homework track now. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Little moon baton. We better stop.
Then I can do Uno instead of I guess I should be flat. Uno thinks that John is
Grammy Award winning. Okay.
that I'm probably just not actually one way. This.
I think it.
It's not a lot. Oh, because I did do some auto tanning.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what was screwing it up. Sorry, I should have done a better sound check. Yeah, you got the spirit. You just need to bring up the acid sense more.
Yeah. The weird. It's I recorded automation moving around vinyl distortion.
Oh, okay.
To get that. That's just an effect on the vital bass.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Sweet.
Yeah, there's some weird resonances in this space that the bass always seems to
Stuff
set
that
off.
you noticed that I don't.
See ya.